Yo, what's up guys? Teacher Paul over here, and today we are reacting to a video suggestion. This is from Gerben on Discord. If you want to join us on Discord, link is in the description. Guys, this is an interesting video. It kind of caught my eye. This is what New York could learn from Amsterdam's streets. So we're comparing the streets of New York with the streets of Amsterdam. This is from a channel called Streetscapes. And if you're new to the channel, guys, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe. If you want to request a video, go over to Buy Me a Coffee. Link is in the pinned comments, and let's go straight into it. If you want to watch the original video without my commentary, link is in the description. Let's go.
This is a street in New York City, and this is a street in Amsterdam. At first glance, both cities have streets of similar widths, but the design choices couldn't be more different. One is a perfect example of a badly designed street, while the other has a solution that works. In New York, a wide and straight road is packed with cars, while in Amsterdam, people cycle on smooth red asphalt, and an efficient transit corridor keeps the city moving. Its design...
Okay, but right off the bat, this is cultural. You need to first... tell New Yorkers they need to ride a bike or take public transporter. That's the hard part. The design, I don't think, will be the hardest part. But anyways, and also if you compare the size, you know, and the distance it takes, I don't know. But okay, that's just my first impressions, 30 seconds in. Let's take a look at the rest.
Makes it one of the world's most advanced street profiles, but it wasn't always this way. Decades ago, citizens in both countries protested, but change only came to Amsterdam. The city looks completely different today. New York promises change, but will it ever happen?
Only Amsterdam got things done.
Different approaches to planning public space. To illustrate this, we'll compare two major streets, 3rd Avenue in New York and Overtoom in Amsterdam. They have similar widths, and they serve the same purpose, connecting neighborhoods and acting as transit corridors. But the design of both streets couldn't be more different. On Overtoom, about 31% of the space is dedicated to cars, and public transport and cyclists each get their lanes. On 3rd Avenue, cars dominate. About 67% of public space is used for moving or parking cars. However, things used to be different. American cities, it's...
You can't discuss with Dutch engineering. You know, Dutch engineering is 100% efficient, so you can't argue with that.
Some of the best public transport systems in the world. 3rd Avenue had an elevated railway and a streetcar system. People also cycled. But then,
people also
changed.
Cycled.
By the 1920s, cars had become more affordable and started taking over city streets.
Is it too late now, though?
By the 1950s, more people were moving to the suburbs. Traffic was rising, and cities prioritized cars. Highways were designed to connect all major cities in the US, and unlike in Europe, highways were built cutting straight through city centers. This, combined with the rise of parking lots and modern office buildings, led to thousands of beautiful buildings being demolished.
Wow.
Streetcar networks were ripped out. Cobbled streets were paved over.
Did you see that picture? Wow. Wow. Those are, let me count that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 6 blocks of buildings gone. And more at the back. Dang.
Buildings being demolished. Streetcar networks were ripped out. Cobble streets were paved over with asphalt. 3rd Avenue was no exception. The elevated railway and the streetcar network was destroyed. Cars took over American cities. Buses were supposed to replace the old routes, but that never happened. Walkable and transit-friendly cities disappeared.
But
by the late 1960s, Dutch cities
bad
designing
designing?
Similarly, but unlike the US, they kept their tram networks largely intact. In both countries, congestion and road crashes rose, sparking resistance. In New York, activists like Jane Jacobs fought back against further highway expansion. They successfully blocked the Cross-Manhattan Expressway, which would have demolished Soho. A similar plan also failed in Amsterdam. In 1973, the oil crisis led the Dutch government to introduce car-free Sundays. Both countries saw protests against rising traffic deaths, especially among children. But the movement only gained widespread support in the Netherlands. Press conferences were held, and children visited
historically similar.
The Stop the Kindermoord campaign united people across different political beliefs. Politicians couldn't ignore the rising traffic deaths, and something had to be done. As complete redesigns would be too costly, early changes were cheap but effective. On Overtoom, people cycling had to share the road with cars, so they painted bike lanes, and car lanes were reduced. Trams would get stuck in traffic throughout the city, therefore they installed concrete curbs to separate trams from cars. In 1975, multiple groups from throughout the country formed a National Cyclist Union that advocated for taking bicycles seriously in traffic policy. At the time, many demonstrations also took place. Most of them were peaceful, some were not. Over time came the bigger shifts, Wonerfs and car-free city centers. A Wonerf is a shared street design to slow cars and prioritize pedestrians and cyclists.
Oh,
More streets were
that's
designed
why.
with narrower roadways and smaller intersections. This
Wait,
was a huge shift.
wait, I've seen this all over Europe. This is designed for cars to have a hard time getting through. So this is purposely designed for that. That is so smart. Because I've always seen like cars parked in the middle of the road, and I was like, come on, you need a free road. But I get it now. It's kind of like it's a smart way of making cars slow down. Oh, that's so smart. And also optimizing space.
Prioritize pedestrians and cyclists. More streets were designed with narrower roadways and smaller intersections. This was a huge shift in thinking, as street design guidelines had long prioritized wide and straight roads. Though most streets didn't implement this shared space design, they adopted other traffic calming measures, such as raising intersections and putting in speed bumps.
That is so
Dutch
smart.
cities redefined public space.
But you can't find parking anywhere, can you? But that's the same for New York.
All streets in the Netherlands were categorized into two types: traffic areas and residential areas. Traffic areas are larger streets that prioritize vehicle flow, like Overtoom, and residential areas are quieter streets where through traffic is restricted and livability is prioritized. Residential areas would have a 30 km/h speed limit and preferably be made one way for cars.
Makes a
while
lot of
cyclists would be
sense.
exempt. Cobblestone and brick were reintroduced, not just for aesthetics, but to slow down cars naturally. Meanwhile, traffic areas kept asphalt for efficiency. Cars continued to be a problem in city centers, and much like in the US, there were a bunch of parking lots and office buildings, making them undesirable places to live or spend free time. In response, cities like Groningen divided the city center into 4 zones. Cars couldn't drive directly from one area to another anymore, and instead had to make a detour. People walking and cycling were given priority.
But I hate that. Like, I really hate that. I do. Oh man, these type of things is that's what gets me. Like, but also, guys, not only that, I don't think New York maybe wants to fix their problems, because at least what I've heard, the word is that the whole of the United States was designed for people to consume more cars, to buy more cars. That's why the public transportation isn't as good as in Europe, because the car industry is what kind of dictates, you know, transportation there. At least that's what I heard. I don't know if it's true. You can fact check that.
This plan was controversial among shop owners. They protested and called it an assassination attempt on the city. Fewer cars and parking spaces would mean fewer customers, but the opposite happened.
Lovely.
Today, each of the 20 largest Dutch cities has restrictions on car use in the city center, making them some of the world's best urban environments. City centers came back to life. Foot and bicycle traffic increased, and businesses are thriving. But the key to success wasn't a few cases of unrest. It was 20 years of increasing public support, efforts to redesign streets with protected bike lanes, and measures to restrict cars in the city center.
Public support, that's the whole
Since the
key.
1970s, traffic fatalities have dropped by 80%. Many streets look unrecognizable compared to 50 years ago. The way public space is allocated in each city directly impacts how people travel. In New York, 34% of trips are made by car, and only 3% are made by bike, while in Amsterdam, 21% are made by car, and 34% are made by bike.
You guys love your bikes. And I have a fun fact. It wasn't in Amsterdam, but, you know, I think other countries kind of have the same mentality. So Belgium, when I was in Belgium, I used to bike a lot. In fact, even in Berlin, the idea of going to Berlin, hiring a bike, and traveling the whole of Berlin by bike the whole day was amazing to me. So one of the best experiences that I have done, and you know, I miss that in big cities. Here in the UK, I still used to bike, but it's not as efficient, it's not as safe as it was in these countries. So it's something that could change a lot, and it's good for well being also. But I couldn't imagine like taking a bike and riding around New York, like unless it's in the park or something. But it's quite dangerous, like on the streets. No, I don't think so.
A direct result of building safe bike lanes in a dense city. Meanwhile, in the US, the car-centric mindset remains. A major factor in this was the rise of suburbia after World War II. Millions of Americans live in sprawling areas where driving is the only practical option, and
Yeah,
low population
that's
density
what I was
makes
saying.
transit funding difficult. Even in downtowns, where cycling and transit used to be the go-to options, American downtowns are still for cars. However, New York is beginning to correct its past mistakes.
It
The
is?
city has been constructing protected bike lanes to alleviate traffic congestion and improve road safety.
Oh, I didn't see
This remains
that.
an exception rather than the norm. Streets like Third Avenue reflect the car-centric design that dominates American streets. Third Avenue has remained largely unchanged for the past 50 years. Overtown, meanwhile, has been completely transformed. Today, the street is a
Wow.
dedicated transit corridor that also provides a clear path for emergency vehicles, and the painted bike lanes have been transformed into curbside protected bike lanes that allow cyclists and people with disabilities to move around safely. People could cycle on Third Avenue, but would you let your kids cycle here? Well, Overtown has evolved.
And another thing that I noticed is everyone in Amsterdam, they're so skinny. And that's mostly because you guys are cycling like all the time. It's great. That is great. I should start cycling again.
Into a safe street for all users, Third Avenue remains stuck in the past. If someone is brave enough to cycle, they are forced to squeeze between cars. Buses can get stuck in traffic, and pedestrians have to cross multiple lanes of traffic. Because Third Avenue has a wide and straight roadway with no physical obstacles, it is easier and more comfortable to drive fast. Wide and short roads
Wow.
are dangerous, especially for pedestrians.
The
From
logic
above,
is
we
just
can see
not
the
there.
difference. Third Avenue has 5 lanes of traffic that encourage high speeds. In contrast, Overtown only has 2 lanes of traffic and a lower speed limit of 30 kilometers an hour. This has helped to reduce air and noise pollution on the street. Also, notice how the roadway is completely straight in New York, but has slight curves in Amsterdam. This makes drivers pay attention and slow down. In New
Wow.
York, dangerous driver choices are a primary cause or contributing factor in 70% of pedestrian fatalities.
That is so
But
smart.
blaming drivers alone ignores a key factor. Street design directly impacts driver behavior and speed. This is why traffic islands are a crucial design element. Traffic islands should have raised curbs that center from the road and include a traffic column.
We have that
In
here
the
in
Netherlands,
the
they're everywhere because they make drivers
in the
slow
UK.
down and pay more attention, making the street safer for everyone. Most importantly, traffic islands allow people to cross in multiple stages. This makes crossing safer and more comfortable. Additional safety features, such as warning markings and reflective elements, help keep drivers alert. Although the street is just one lane in each direction, it is enough, since intersections determine road capacity. This is why additional lanes are added only before intersections.
Okay, the design is all logical, makes a lot of sense, but the only thing I'm worried about, and maybe somebody can help me out with, is the population. That really factors in, doesn't it? Because the more people with more cars, the more traffic, right? And I don't know, maybe there would be traffic with bikes if everybody started riding bikes. The population does affect this, right? And also the size of the city. I don't know. Is there? But then again, it's better to have traffic on bikes than on cars, and it's safer too. Yeah. Okay, let's have a discussion in the comments.
To improve traffic flow, traffic detection strips on both the roadway and bike lanes means that every light cycle is adjusted to real-time traffic flow. Left turns are especially dangerous, so they usually have a dedicated light cycle to prevent potential head-on crashes. And at intersections with smaller streets, where there aren't traffic lights, exit constructions ensure that pedestrians and cyclists don't have to step down into the street, unlike in New York, where the sidewalk stops before an intersection. In Amsterdam, beveled curbs make drivers slow down before entering a residential street, and the continuous design
That is so
shows
cool.
that pedestrians and cyclists have the right of way. Overtown's design naturally encourages more awareness and slower speeds. Meanwhile, Third Avenue's car-centric design encourages people to speed. Car-centric design defines American streets. This is one of the main reasons why New Yorkers are almost twice as likely to die in a road crash than Amsterdammers.
My
But
goodness.
Overtown is not just safe, It's incredibly efficient.
You can't
While
argue with that.
accurately measuring the number of people a street can move is challenging, reliable estimates suggest that Overtome can handle around 46,000 people per hour, while Third Avenue manages only about 21,000. Cars take up a lot of space.
Okay. So this is the population answer that I... Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Dang it. Okay. But what about cars though? Drive lane? Yeah, but the thing is they don't really prioritize cars here. So it's all about getting used to it. See, the thing is the Third Avenue can accommodate 3,000 to 8,000 cars per hour or people. Is there anything that mentions how many cars they can? That would be interesting. So it's all about deciding who are you going to prioritize, the cars or the people. And I think obviously Amsterdam is doing a great job with this. It's fantastic. It's a great design. It all takes some use to getting used to it. It takes some time getting used to it. But I think if people just decide, okay, I'd rather bike or take public transport, because there is like this there's this sense of emergency in New York. I need to get there. So everybody wants to go by car, taxi, you know. And there's this ickiness or prejudice with public transport. People who take public transport, you know, they're less, there is that mentality as well. So all of this kind of needs to change if everybody is going to start biking and, you know, taking public transport and just walking to work. I think it goes a lot, but it takes a lot of changing the mentality and the culture to get this turned, you know. But I think it's changing. I think a lot of people are deciding to bike to work as well. But then, yeah, there's a lot of things that need to be in place, right? To change it. Is it too late? Do you guys think so or no? It's never too late, is it? To redesign the whole street.
Only about 21,000. Cars take up a lot of space compared to trams and bicycles. A moving car takes up 28 times more space than a moving bicycle. But while we might call Overtome a
there's
traffic
also the
area,
flex.
the street isn't just for traffic and parking. It's about
there's also the flex, right? You're in New York, you're a businessman. You don't want to be caught walking to work or going biking to work. And I know that may be something far-fetched to Europeans. What do you mean by that? But yeah, some people, they would make fun of you. What, did you come by bike? Or like, you know, because people sometimes think that fancy cars make them better. It happens. It's I'm not saying everyone does that, but it happens.
Well, we might call Overtome a
It's
traffic
part of
area,
corporate.
but the street isn't just for traffic and parking. It's about balancing movement with creating a pleasant space for living and leisure. Streets are public spaces and bring people together. And of course, any street is nicer with trees, which create a much more pleasant space. Several buildings also have facade gardens in front of them. These tiny greenery patches add a lot and improve the overall atmosphere. Outdoor dining areas also contribute to a more enjoyable and lively street. The combination of traffic flow and meeting places gives streets like Overtome this distinct urban quality, while the rest of city streets are quiet residential streets.
It's cool.
A huge difference exists if we map out the traffic flow between the two cities. In New York, traffic passes by on all streets. In Amsterdam, traffic flows in traffic areas, while residential areas are only used to access buildings. In most cities, cars are the main source of air and noise pollution. A clear hierarchy of loud and quiet streets minimizes exposure for as many people as possible. This is crucial as air pollution and environmental noise are leading causes of disease. Limiting through traffic is essential for public health. This division of public space also means that Amsterdam doesn't need as many traffic lights as New York does because of lower traffic volumes. But because Overtome is a traffic area, it can of course see increased traffic. However, it's certainly not 5 lanes of cars, and you can avoid traffic by cycling or taking transit. The key is providing people multiple options to get around, like Amsterdam has with cycling and efficient bus and tram service.
Not only that, when I was in Amsterdam, guys, you guys have double-decker buses. I mean, double-decker trains, which it was the first time I had ever seen that. You had like you go into the platform and then you have one going down and then one going up. I had never seen that. Two levels in a train, or actually three levels, because one goes down, one goes up. That's crazy. Like that's something that is unheard of in many parts of the world. And it makes sense. Why not make two levels? Like we have double-decker buses here in the UK. Why not have double-decker trains?
Because the only way to reduce traffic is to provide viable alternatives to driving. But the shift isn't just about transportation, it's about public health. Cycling brings economic health benefits of nearly 19 billion euros per year. It improves both mental and physical well-being and reduces air and noise pollution.
I like cycling.
Amsterdam understands this. Sustainable and healthy exercise is one of its 5 strategic development goals. New York, not so much. Every taxpayer funds road infrastructure, whether they drive or not. On streets like Overtoom, public space is allocated democratically. There's space for people to walk, cycle, take transit, and drive. Third Avenue, however, is mostly a street for cars. Streets for cars are far less efficient than streets for everybody. And of course, these vastly different design choices directly impact road safety. In 2014, New York launched Vision Zero, claiming that no road deaths are acceptable. The city has also set goals to prioritize public transit, walking, and biking. Yet streets like Third Avenue, like most in the city, they tell a different story. New York may be ahead of most US cities in sustainable transportation, but compared to Amsterdam, it's still far behind. If the city truly wants safer, more livable streets, and to reach a sustainable mode share of 80% by 2050, it must completely rethink its approach to street design. Change isn't just possible, it's necessary, and it's also a choice to keep the city not only moving, but healthy.
Okay, that is great. That's a great video. The only thing is, I feel like it's only one-sided, right? I mean, okay, I know that the video is what New York could learn from Amsterdam streets and not a comparison video. I know that's not the key here, but I feel like New Yorkers are going to be like, hey, but what about the good things? I don't think that's the point of the video, but one thing I like about New York streets is that it's easy to locate, like First Avenue, Fifth Avenue, you know, the corner of Fifth and Main or whatever. I like that, the fact that it's very easy to find yourself, to locate, especially like in GeoGuessr, for example. You can find yourself exactly where you are, pinpoint where you are in New York, easier than anyone or anywhere else. Hi, Anthea. Sydney also has tri-level trains. That's amazing. That's awesome. But anyways, any of those, both of those, I know that Amsterdam can also learn a little bit from New York. So I don't want this to be one-sided. And I see that maybe some New Yorkers watching this might think, oh, you're just like being one-sided to Amsterdam. And I don't want that to happen, because I think we can all learn from each other. But definitely you can't argue with the design of Amsterdam streets and the results, and it's good for health also. You know, it's just a great it's a great way to accommodate a lot of people, and that's pretty cool. I think that's pretty awesome. So 3 levels, yep, tri-level. Okay, thank you guys for watching. This was a great video. If you want to request a video, go over to Buy Me Coffee, click over here, or click over here to see more of my Netherlands playlist. Take care now. Bye-bye.